The following podcast is intended for people who are intent on growing their business. And welcome to Innovate Marketing, where we are bringing you interviews with the people that are making waves in the world of marketing, branding, and business growth. I'm your host, shawnpneal, and we are brought to you by mypodcastmedia. So if you're a brand and you're considering podcasting or even revamping an existing podcast, make sure you visit mypodcast.media. Now, we've got a great show for you today, so without further ado, let's get into it. Hi, and thanks so much for joining me for another great episode of Innovate Marketing. Of course, we're talking to people who are making waves in the world of marketing, branding, and business growth. And so often I have run into the intersection of marketing and public relations. And I think that PR, first of all, has so much value. And I think sometimes gets overlooked. So today I am really excited to bring you a great interview with Heather DeSantis Holmes. And she is from Publicity for Good. We're going to learn a little bit about her and then we'll get into the interview. So let's get into it. Heather DeSantis is the CEO and founder of Publicity for Good. A former Miss Ohio International, she leads the firm with a mission to partner with people and companies who are committed to making the world a better place. Publicity for Good is a communications firm that provides high-level, disruptive publicity and social media services for its wide array of purpose-driven clients in the food, beverage, and beauty industry. It was founded in 2016 and has built a reputation as the country's #1 PR agency for CPG brands that have social good causes built into their DNA. And Heather DeSantis Holmes, welcome to Innovate Marketing. How are you doing today?
Good.
Excellent. You are the founder, CEO and founder of Publicity for Good. We're going to be talking about some PR stuff. But first I want to get into your journey a little bit, because one of the things that I noticed, you have a rich history of PR and communications going all the way back to college. Yes, I researched that.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what interested you in communications. Like how did you get that bug for this?
Sure. So I think it started back when I was a little girl. And I always was excited to get people excited about initiatives and causes. So, I was a Girl Scout, and every single year I sold the most amount of Girl Scout cookies. Okay. And then from there, my dad died of lung cancer my senior year of high school. And it was on Christmas, and there was a Valentine's Day. For Valentine's Day, essentially, there was the King and Queen of Hearts, and to win, you had to raise money. So then from there, I raised money for lung cancer awareness for my dad. And that's really when I became really passionate about talking about causes and missions that I believed in. And then from there, I went to college. I did study communications, but everything I did was really around rallying people around good causes. Like, I was president of my class. I was vice president of my sorority. And again, it was just casting the vision, getting people excited about doing good. I ran a program for at-risk teen girls through Springfield Christian Youth Ministries. And it was sad. Most of their parents were incarcerated. One day a week, we would work out. The other day, we would cook and do life skills and read the Bible. And I just had this heart for causes and people that were in need. And I always rallied and got people to get excited about a cause or a mission. And I was a communications major. When I was at my university, I did an intensive at Georgetown University, and it was all on conscious capitalism and the free market. And we studied Andrew Carnegie. And for the longest time, my heart was service and nonprofits and causes. And I studied how businesses can make a difference. So instead of just giving money away, why don't I teach people or give them the skills or donate $1,000 for my business instead of $5 here and there. And I thought, wow, like you can have a business, you can make a difference. And that's my wheels started to turn. Now, mind you, that passion for communication and entrepreneurship stemmed from the fact that my dad and uncle were really successful entrepreneurs in real estate, building millions and millions of dollars of net worth. And I saw that, but my dad and uncle were very humble, meaning like sweatshirts. Like my dad had he was a general contractor and had a construction business. So that means he wore jeans and sweatshirts and cutoffs and always had like paint on him. And my uncle was on the real estate side, built a portfolio of like 50 million plus, but then again, humble, sweatpants, you know what I mean? And I wasn't the type of kid that had a silver spoon in her mouth. I never went without, but I was so grateful from seeing family be entrepreneurs. But my dad died of cancer on Christmas. My uncle died a couple years later. And that was my passion for being an entrepreneur, because I felt that being an entrepreneur was my only connection to them, living a legacy. And then fast forward, after college, I worked at an ad agency learning PR. I was there 3.5 years. And it definitely felt like, Mad Men, a Mad Men agency, 15-hour days, like, having to be there right at 8 and you know what I mean? Like being at your desk, being chained to your desk, not eating, all those things. And I thought to myself, there has to be a better way in that you can work really, really hard, get the best results possible, but have a blended life. Like at the time, I wasn't even engaged. I was super single in my early 20s. And there was no way that I ever could imagine at the time being a mom and being like the best employee ever. I'm like, how do you do it if you have to be here at 8 and you want to be involved in your kid's life and you want to get them on the bus or whatever? Like, how do you do it? So it was those things that were always on my heart. The fact that my dad and uncle were entrepreneurs, but then also too, although they were very involved, my mom was very involved in my activities. My dad was home, but he was working all the time. So I knew that I wanted to create something. I wanted to create a business where I could work really, really, really hard like my dad and uncle, but be a little bit more present than what I felt like I experienced. So that was really the evolution of it. I started my experience of doing PR at an ad agency. I was there for 3.5 years. And then June 15, 2015, I quit, moved to my mom's house, got a minimum wage job at Lifetime Fitness. I'm so thankful for that because I focused on my health. And then I started slowly building my agency, Publicity for Good. Worked at Lifetime for 3.5 years. And then 2019, which was the year of the pandemic, was our first $1 million year. And we built it to be $1 million company from our 23-foot Airstream, me and my husband. So
wow.
I've been in the trenches so much that is happening is because it was on my heart for so long. You know what I mean? Like I knew in my 20s when I was building something that I wanted the ability to get up at 4 a.m. and work. So at 3, I could be a mom or hang out with my mom or, you know what I mean? Like, I believe that you can hustle your heart out, but I never wanted to have to pick one over the other. Even if you look at a corporate setting and you have limited vacation, right? Like that's hard because years ago in my 20s, and maybe this sounds snobbish, I'm not sure, but I had limited vacation time. So did I choose to go on vacation with my mom or did I choose to go on vacation with my boyfriend? And I didn't want to have to choose one over the other when I was willing to get up at 4, do what I need to do, crush it to have both. So,
yes. And your dad has to be proud. I mean, because what you're talking about here is kind of the fundamental of what drives entrepreneurs. There is something deep inside and you have found a way to connect that, that closeness of family to like your future, the legacy that you mentioned. And I love the fact that when we originally jumped on this call, like one of the first things out of your mouth was, what about legacy? I like hearing that. I like hearing the fact that there's more to you than just making that million, which congratulations, by the way.
Yeah. But the reason I love publicity is there's a couple things. One, it stays with you forever. So now I have Rose, a 1-year-old, and Benaya, who's 2 weeks old. When they Google me, they're going to see that Rose, our little daughter, was in USA Today with me in Austin talking about living full-time in an Airstream. They'll see us on Fox News. There's just all these articles and articles and articles of our story. And the thing I love about publicity is your story evolves over time. When I first was in the media, it was really talking about adding a purpose-driven component to your business. Then years ago, I did pageants and I was Miss Ohio. So then it was Miss Ohio. Then it switched to PR tips. And then my story was living full-time in an Airstream, scaling a business. Now it's really, having 2 kids under 2, running $1 million company, having a homestead, being a crunchy mom, trying to do it all and figure it out as you go. But your story is what matters. And we've had so many clients that haven't had a big business or website, and all you need is your story. Like, we've gotten people in the news without an Instagram account and or a website because it's the story. People want that hero's journey. People want to hear the transformation, and people want to know, well, what can I do to scale my business, or how do I create a podcast? So,
yeah. So let's talk a little bit, because you really niched into, and the title says everything, publicity for good, into organizations that are, food and beverage. Actually, let me ask you that. What are the industries specifically that you're covering?
Yeah. So Publicity for Good, we support purpose-driven and mission-driven brands and people. What does that mean? It could be a brand that gives back financially. It could be a brand that partners with a nonprofit. It could be a mom who started a cookie company because her daughter had a food allergy. These are all family-owned companies that were started from a problem. They're heart stories, and they're privately held. So that's the first component of it. Outside of that, I feel so grateful that we've gotten to partner with over 200 brands, but really it's been everything from food and beverage. It's been everything to health and wellness. It's been nonprofits. It's been influencers and business coaches. But at the end of the day, they all have that heart to their story. And the exciting thing is, I find as a founder, it's so easy to get stuck in the operations. We forget our why. And I find that when we start getting in the media, we're reconnected to the why of our business. So part of the reason I want to do interviews is to be reminded of the why. So I'm able to speak from experience for our clients, like of what it's like to be in the media. And I remember when I started my company, I was building it for my mom's basement. I would work probably like 5 a.m. to 7:30, work at the gym 8 to 5, eat dinner real quick, and then be at it again. So it was always on mentality. But I did find myself having the same feelings of being alone and trapped. When I had my own company, I had the same feelings that I did when I was at the agency. It was because I had the same habits, and I didn't feel like I had a voice. So when I started being in the media, I felt reconnected to my business, my story. I felt like I had a voice, and my family started realizing that I was not messing around. Like, as soon as I was on ABC, NBC, and Fox local media, they're like, oh, you're doing something. And then I had clients start saying yes to me because they realized I was serious. And there was that sense of credibility too. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the space of PR, because I think, and I've seen both sides of it. I've seen, the kind that you're talking about, and I've seen crisis management where, the whale at the zoo just ate a small child. Now we have to figure out how to talk about that in a public forum. Can you talk a little bit about what some of the challenges are for today's brands when you look at all of the noise out there, all of the things that are happening, and we're inundated with online? What are some of the challenges that they're encountering in the space of PR? And then what are some of the solutions that you're seeing out there?
Challenges that I see is a couple of things. Founders aren't willing to do the work, and that the most successful brands are willing to do every interview. They know it's practice. They know that it's not about me. It's about who's going to hear my message, who am I going to inspire, number one. That's the biggest bottleneck that I see, is that people aren't willing to do the work, or they only say, you know what, Shawn, I only want Good Morning America, Fox, and CNN. Like, that's it. So that's probably the biggest barrier, in that people's ego is so connected to their media and they get validation from it, that they're not willing to do the work. You know, I've seen people get featured in Forbes in the first 30 days. I've seen people get national coverage in 30 days. But a lot of it is down to the attitude, the sense of gratefulness, and knowing that when your time is supposed to happen, it's going to happen. But you need to have a lot of practice before you get on Good Morning America. And we're working with the Today Show and Good Morning America right now, but they want to see clips of you. So you can't be a one-hit wonder. When people Google your name, you need to already have press up, and you need to have practice. So that's probably the biggest barrier, is that people don't make the time, and or they view themselves more of a celebrity than they are, and they're not willing to do the work to get there. And I understand, I've been a part of the process, but I've probably done like 800 interviews, and I've done local, I've done national. You know, we've been featured on Business Insider, Inside Edition, WGN. That's one of the largest TV stations in Chicago. We've done it all. But a lot of it is based on, are you ready? Do you have the right story? And is it the right timing? And sometimes things happen in the world that just, for some brands, it creates this amazing opportunity where you can get a lot of media, because there's external things that happen that we can't control.
Yeah. Yeah. And everything that you're talking about here, and again, going back to the name of the company, Publicity for Good, everything that you're talking about being purpose-driven in the space of media, and being able to communicate this message in a way that we don't often have the ability to in marketing. And that's one of the things that throughout my years of doing what I do, you know, there's such a confusion of PR and marketing. It's, you know, it's very lumped together. You know, I have, and with all acknowledgement, these are completely different fields, but I'm a PR and marketing expert. Okay, pick one.
Yeah.
Which one do you lean more towards? Can you talk a little bit about the difference there, just so everybody can kind of grasp onto, you know, what that fine line is that differentiates both PR from marketing in the world of brands anyway?
Sure. So public relations is all earned media, meaning that when you hire a PR agency, the reason you would hire someone like Publicity for Good is that you don't want to have to management. You want excellence, you want speed of execution, and you utilize them for their thought and relationships. That's the biggest reason why you would hire someone like us. But again, it's not guaranteed. So getting in the media is based on relevancy, trending topics, and why your story matters. So that's really the biggest part of the puzzle, as well as we can't control the narrative as much. Meaning, right, if you have a product and we send it to the media, we can't control what their experience is. Sometimes things take longer. Now, the reason I love local media is because local media always wants to cover local businesses and local stories. So I always suggest, as a local business, you need to start local, prosper where you are, own your market, own your state. Now, as you scale your business, you know, you'll then want to go to other states and look at national media. The other thing I find is that sometimes people are too promotional. So what I mean by that, if I had a beverage brand, instead of talking about the solution and bridging the product to how it helps people and today and how it's summer, people just send a sales pitch. There's definitely a different way, methodology and process to pitch the media. But really, publicity is earned media. It's looking at everything from influencers, podcast hosts, TV stations, magazines, print, newspaper, all those different outlets, getting people to talk about you and endorse your product and service. Now, mind you, that is proving to be less expensive than advertising. And it's also more relatable and trusting. So that's the first component of it. We are, though, finding that when we're pitching our brands, what we're doing is we're decreasing the bounce rate to their website. And then our brands are able to integrate those media logos and as seen on their website, on their shopping page, and in their marketing. And that is helping with sales. Now, marketing on the other side, that is paid. So if you look at paid traffic on Facebook or Instagram, it's very transactional, meaning you are investing this, you're reaching this many people, and you're literally able to see what your rate of return is or your ROAS from doing paid traffic. So that you're really able to control the numbers, look at the data, and make more of a decision. But I would say marketing is more focused on advertising for sales, where public relations is more on the heart of the story, your product differentiator, attributes of the brand. And there's also paid media. There's a lot of sponsored content. And if you ever see an article that's sponsored content, that's an article, but essentially what's happening is they're literally paying the person for the article. So when you pay for that, there's going to be more control to what you say. Now, the crossover from PR and marketing and advertising is that we're finding, yes, publicity is way more trusting for consumers than advertising. But when you add publicity to your digital marketing plan, it's decreasing the cost of acquiring customers. So essentially, your digital marketing agency is doing paid traffic. They integrate your press features in your ads. And with the retargeting, you should be getting more customers because you're integrating it into your marketing and your digital marketing. The problem that I see is when there's no integration. So that means everything needs to be integrated and it needs to be one, meaning that the keywords on marketing we're utilizing in our PR and articles, and then the digital marketing team is utilizing the clips from the interviews and assets in digital marketing to grow the business.
Yeah, that's great. So one thing that's kind of striking me here is we talk so much about digital, and I would love to kind of look at what it looked like 15 years ago. So I remember I was working in a nonprofit, and my job was essentially to book entertainment into a nonprofit theater with zero budget. So it's a lot of wheeling and dealing and seeing how we can make things work. And one of the keys to that success was being able to obviously get the local newspaper to latch onto a story, but then to reach out to the bigger cities and get their, TV stations, local affiliates.
Yeah.
What have you seen in your course of time being in this industry? What have you seen change, and how has it changed? And I'm thinking everything from that kind of traditional to, technology based, but I'll leave it to you. What have you seen changed, and where do you think it's kind of landed now?
So there's a lot of consolidations, companies merging. I see a lot of platforms doing more sponsored content or affiliate marketing as well. There aren't as many radio stations as in the past.
Yeah.
Before, people were so excited to do radio or really do any media. Now people are really questioning everything and seeing, well, what's the ROI and how am I bringing in sales as well. Before, I'm not saying people got lazier, but I see a lot of times media members will just run content they're sent. Or if we sent products to the media years ago, the media member would review the product, take photos, all of those things. And we see media members now essentially receiving product and then putting stock photos in their review. So
wow.
People are not as lenient with their time. People aren't really doing meetups as they were before, or media mixers, and even desk side interviews. Media members are a lot more non-committal, and a lot of media members are working at home from now. So there's not as much camaraderie or people walking, walking from desk to desk talking about story ideas either.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And you're right. Like the whole landscape of how that has changed is just mind boggling. Real quick, let's talk about that kind of crisis PR. Let's talk about, the foodborne illness or whatever that breaks out at the local restaurant, and the restaurant owner is like, oh my gosh, I got to do damage control because people are, not even looking at me right now. They don't want to come in here. What kind of things, what kind of tactics do you suggest or implement when someone finds themselves in a need to kind of manage a crisis or a situation?
So I think it all comes down to processes and procedures. I think it first comes down to clarity on who's going to be speaking or, addressing the issue at hand. It's making sure that there are statements already on hand. It's also like having a process of like review as a team, but then also whenever this has happened in the past, we've literally for like 48 to 72 hours just monitored the web, monitored social media, because now things can get elevated with social media when consumers have access to keyboards. It's really easy for them to be maybe a little bit more courageous than they would if they were to talk to you in real life. So things can get elevated and escalated when you look at it. There's the side of the media, but now you have all these individuals that have access to, their own social media platforms and the freedom to post, which I think everyone should be able to have freedom to post what they want. But it can be detrimental to a brand. So, you just need to keep an eye on it when there's a crisis, because sometimes, especially like for causes that people are passionate about, people can, reshare content without knowing. People, I think sometimes with social media, businesses don't know how to react. Like it's scary.
So
sometimes it's scary in that like you're trying to make the best decision for you and your family and business. But sometimes as a business, some things that happen seem so trendy or positioned so trendy that if like you don't post something because everyone else is, you're ostracized. But what if you don't believe that, or you don't want to post that, or you're on vacation? Like, it's crazy how much a business can be impacted by social media and a business. And again, I believe like you should just stay true to who you are and not do things because you feel like you have to. But I've seen over the years how like scary it can be as a business owner when something happens in the news and then you see all these consumers talking about it and you're like, well, like, you know what I mean? Like, There's a lot more pressure these days.
Yeah, we don't talk about that very often either, but yeah, I completely agree. One of the things that I remember early on when Facebook was really starting to boom back in 2009, maybe, and businesses were jumping on board Facebook pages, and the commentary was, don't ever leave a comment on your Facebook page post unanswered, even the negative ones, and it was Google reviews, same thing. Never let it just sit there. Acknowledge it. And I think that what you're kind of tapping on here is this, really gritty human piece of public relations, and being the human piece of it that says, I have to respond in some way, even if it's just to say, I'm sorry you had that experience. I'm sorry you had that experience.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I firm believe now more than ever it's super important. I mean, we have purchasing power, and I think doing business with people that you're aligned with and are your people is like so good. But I do think like, hey, I'm sorry you had that experience. And then, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to go into a dissertation, like people, I've learned the more successful you become, the more people are going to try to tear you down. And some people like get so comfortable and have so much courage on their phone and you don't even know who they are. And if you saw them in real life, they wouldn't say anything. So
exactly, they'd be as nice as they could.
Yeah, you're like, you just said that, and it ruined my whole day, and it impacted me significantly, and so.
Yeah. So As we kind of wrap up our time here, I would love for you to just kind of look into the future. Okay. So we're going to kind of close our eyes. I'll probably, have the team put some fun little sound effect that we're going to look into the future and just kind of tell me what you envision in the next 5 years for yourself personally, for the business. Where do you see things heading?
Yeah, so Publicity for Good is a top PR and communications agency. We have bought some other agencies. So we are doing PR, digital marketing, SEO, websites, and any purpose-driven, mission-driven brand that wants to get their message in the world, we partner with. We fully live on our homestead. We have 22 acres that we're building on. So we are on our dream property with mountains. We have like 8 to 10 kids. We have 2. I was adopted, so I want to adopt. So, we're building our family, and we just get to work with really amazing, intentional brands. And I love working with family brands too. We're having an event here in the fall, and, we're telling people to bring your kids. We'll have babysitters. I mean, it's for us, we're such a family business, I can't imagine people having to leave their kids at home when we're in the mountains of North Carolina. And part of the reason why we want people to come is to, reflect on business, refresh, and enjoy the mountains. I think business is very personal. And I think that it has to be integrated. I don't think you can be like, oh, I'm putting my mom hat. Oh, I'm putting on my CEO hat. It's it's one.
Yeah. It's literally you're dropping the kid off at school while you're, doing a deal on the phone. It's like all of these things happen together.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Heather, how can everybody reach out, find you and the company online?
Yeah. So you can go to publicityforgood.com, and then also Heather DeSantis. And I have a bunch of resources and an amazing PR book that we'll make sure you guys all have access to.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on here and talking about one of my favorite topics, PR and communications. Thank you. So here are a few of my takeaways from my conversation with Heather. The first thing, always rally and get people excited about whatever cause or mission your company, your brand supports. Number 2, public relations is all about earned media. So it depends on a few factors, including what's relevant, what's trending topic-wise, and why your story matters. The third thing, do interviews so that you can be reminded of your why. And last but not least, don't get caught up in what's trending and be posting on social media just to stay in the trends. Be true to yourself, be true to your brand. That's it for this edition of Innovate Marketing. I appreciate you taking time out to listen, and I hope you'll tune in next time. Until we meet again, my friends, stay safe and be well. See ya.